And we're live, I think. Yep.
Oh, we are.
Oh, we are.
So so
So,
that's so that's how we're gonna open.
yeah, that's how we're gonna open. It has to be hilariously awkward at the first episode.
That works.
That works. It does.
Mine just
Hello. I'm Grexino, and this is the first episode of the ToonamiGAF podcast.
That's not
With
true.
me today,
We had
uh,
an episode a long time ago.
yeah,
time.
yep. With me today we have Seda
Hi.
and B-Dubs.
Yo,
And today we're going to talk about all things Toonami.
Luckily, there's only three of us, and I think our voices are distinct enough, so people should be able to follow along. I think a little bit better.
Well, except for this first episode to annoy Line, we're going to all talk over each other all the time.
Yeah.
I think we can do that.
Hey, shut up.
Hey, Nate.
I disagree.
I just.
I do agree.
Boy, this is awkward. So Fooly Cooley's getting a second and third season.
I think it's especially weird how it's like not just a second season. Like that was kind of already, a surprise. Like, nope, two more seasons. It's literally going to triple in episode length.
From what I read about what they're planning to do, it's more like a soft reboot, slash sequel type thing than, a full-on continuation.
It's like a Fooly Cooley Astral Ocean.
Yeah, No, I wouldn't go that far, I think, because Astral Ocean was, disgusting.
But that's what people think it's going to be. Because, like, the prevailing opinion I saw was like, they maybe shouldn't have done this. It didn't really need it. Why?
Well, I mean, whenever Adult Swim gets involved with anime, 9 times out of 10, it's at least watchable. I think the only one that wasn't completely awesome was IGPX, and that's only because they really couldn't get the tone right in the beginning.
Right. And they just kind of, they went for the whole atmospheric kind of Samurai Champloo-ish feel, and then that didn't work out so great, especially at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't watched Fooly Cooley. I caught an episode of it back when it aired on
Wait,
Toonami.
you
How
haven't
do you
seen it?
know? Shit,
You haven't seen it?
Nope.
you're worse than Sega.
Yeah, this is like uncharted territory for me. I've seen something that someone else hasn't.
Right? That's crazy.
Sega has to feel very
I don't
right.
know. What do I say? Anyways,
I'll watch it before it comes on. I have like 2 years.
okay, so first of all, I think it's when they announced this, it almost feels like I doubt this is the case, but it almost felt like Adult Swim is kind of like forcing them or like coercing them, like you guys should do a sequel. Yeah, let's do it. And maybe if they don't really want to, the original creators, that's kind of it's almost like the tone I got for whatever reason.
I
Um,
mean,
so
they
I
did.
want
Sorry.
I wonder how much like these original creators, how much they when they were originally making the series 15 years ago, how many ideas they had and that weren't able to make it into the original 6 episodes that now they are going to try to work into this second and third season. And Adult Swim is just basically giving them the opportunity to do that rather than, just kind of forcing them to make sequels for money or whatever.
Well, I mean, from what I read, most of the original staff members had already moved on someplace else. I think it's just the director and one or two other guys that are still there at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the bunch of the press release materials was like, oh no, this is definitely something they've wanted to do, and they came to us and we funded it. But it's like we won't ever really know unless it ends up being a complete disaster and there's like a tell-all book and people are like, oh yeah, we never wanted to do it, but they shoved our pants full with money, we couldn't say no.
Yeah, so I just kind of wonder, I wonder what was the original impetus to even get this thing to happen. So Production IG got the rights to to Fooly Cooly. I still read it as the letters sometimes. And then they got the rights to it. And I know there were murmurs a while back that somebody wanted to do something with it for whatever reason. And did Toonami kind of just take that and say like, hey, you want to make a sequel? We can help you with money or whatever. So, or is it just that Jason's a big fanboy and like jumped on the opportunity as soon as he could to make more episodes? I don't know.
I mean, apparently they wanted to do them all the way back when it first stopped, but it just wasn't in the cards back then.
So,
if that's the case, then that's a good thing.
I mean, there are two interesting points, I think, from the whole thing outside of more Fully Cooley. One, it's basically targeted for late next year or early 2018, and that's a long way off. Like, they basically announced it the second they confirmed it was going to be a thing. And it's kind of interesting that they kind of maybe even feel like Toonami is going to be around then.
yeah, I suppose that indicates that they have some sense of longer term foresight when it comes to Toonami. Sometimes it feels like they're just kind of winging it, from month to month. They're not sure what's going to even happen 3 months from now. But it looks like they have some, idea of longevity here.
Or it could just be like they're still winging it, and they just say it's going to be on Toonami.
Yeah.
But if it gets canceled between then, they'll just be like, "Hey,
Well,
Adult Swim Action, Fully Cooley, season 2 and 3."
Well, I mean, with the ratings we saw, from last week, it was like almost 6 or over 1 million. And I think if Naruto hadn't been in filler, that could have been over 1 million as well, because God, the filler is.
Yeah, we'll get to
to
that.
We'll spend 5 seconds on that.
I mean, I think I don't think we have to really worry about Toonami's ratings right now. Even Jason will admit, like, ever since they've knocked it down to 3 hours and having Dragon Ball Z in the lead off, it's basically for that time of night, it's beating everything.
I mean, it's basically a rock. An
It's
immovable rock.
those Saturday ratings, like I think, like Dragon Ball Z is like top 5 for the day, and it airs at midnight, like consistently. So it's beating things that are airing, at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. The only thing it doesn't beat are like sport events and Family Guy, and most of the time.
Good old Family Guy.
And some other
it's
big.
Not much when it's airing, but we love its lead-in.
Yes, thank you, Family Guy, for.
That's all I want to know is who still watches it.
Do they still make new episodes?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're bad.
Yes.
Like, I don't like this style of comedy. It's like, ugh.
Anyways, Fooly Cooly, I don't dislike Fooly Cooly, but I'm not really in love with it. I think it's kind of an interesting idea. One thing I thought was kind of awkward is how the press release talks about like these story beats, like what's gonna happen to these characters, and this war between, I forget the nation, the faction names, but I almost feel like the narrative parts in Fooly Cooly are like that's not as important as just the overall tone and vibe and wackiness to it. So I kind of felt like it's weird how the press release focused on like this is a sequel, sort of.
Well, you've got to immediately justify why it exists.
True.
What about this story is necessary?
It's also sort of, I think, to allay the fears of everyone. That's like, because when you hear, sequel to Fooly Cooly, it's like, it stands alone fairly well. So, you sort of have to allay everyone's fears and like, oh no, don't worry, it's not just cash in. There's still stuff to do.
And that was kind of one of the novelties of it too. It's like it's only 6 episodes. That was kind of part of its identity. It was like it's this 6-episode, really wacky, fast-paced. I remember reading somewhere that one of the ideas behind Fooly Cooly was it was going to have like the energy of Japanese style commercials where they're just stuff happening all the time, even if it's somewhat nonsensical and just kind of wacky being the go-to word here. So that type of style, I think, kind of suited the fact that it was only 6 episodes, and probably would at the time you'd think it maybe wouldn't have would have gotten old if it was any longer than that. So it is kind of, I think someone put it like having sequels to it kind of misses the point of Fooly Cooly, and I do see where they're coming from.
Yeah, having it go from a 6 episode little weird thing to basically just a one core show is gonna be a little weird. And this would have been a perfect segue to talk about, My Hero Academia and Diamond Unbreakable episode counts, but I do want to bring up a second point in that if Adult Swim is gonna fund new seasons of Samurai Jack and Fooly Cooly, I feel like I can fairly confidently say that they're eventually gonna fund an animation of the final arc of Bleach.
I think they're definitely going to do that.
If it doesn't happen without them, they'll make it happen.
Yes.
The only thing is that's probably going to be a much higher episode count than what Adult Swim usually does. Most Adult Swim things are like, 10 episodes, 12 episodes. Like this Fooly Cooly thing is ultimately 12 episodes, where I assume a Bleach final act would be more like the 26 or
You
more.
could probably fit it in 13 to tell the truth.
There is a little too many fights. There's so many fights. So please with the fights, stop it. But I mean, you probably could do a 3 core show for that entire arc.
Well,
Assuming they would start animating it after the whole arc was done,
they'd have to.
and they wouldn't have to deal with any of the pacing issues that original Bleach had.
Well, original Bleach wasn't too bad, until they caught up. But going back to Adult Swim, like funding stuff, you have to remember that Space Dandy was 2 core, and they helped fund it. So Japan's more than willing to pay for Bleach. I think
Bleach is the only anime for the big three that was outright canceled.
Yeah, well, they had to cancel it because holy crap, that pacing.
People weren't watching it because of those issues. They stuck around for Shippuden.
Is Bleach really even big three anymore, even in Shonen
Not
world?
really.
Yeah.
The big three kind of always was an American construct.
Yeah.
Because it was always Bleach.
Which ones caught on?
And American-wise, One Piece wasn't quite there. It was more like Fairy Tail, Bleach, and Naruto.
I think with Hunter x Hunter coming back,
for like 6 chapters.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm guessing 12, because it's usually enough for one volume.
Kind of a dumb question. How do you pronounce it? Is it Hunter? I always assumed it was Hunter Cross Hunter. I know that usually when a Japanese... usually when a Japanese title has an X in it, they pronounce it cross. So that was how I read it.
I've always heard it Hunter x Hunter, so...
Okay, I don't know.
Neither do I. I'm just guessing.
That's always seemed a bit awkward, but we can finally segue back into just how many episodes is My Hero Academia going to have? Because the official French streaming site that's going to stream it is giving out a 13 episode count for that. And that doesn't really make any sense, considering it's supposedly the up and coming star of Shonen Jump. It's got Bones behind it. Funimation's pushing it as the next big thing. 13 episodes.
That does make sense because they want to avoid the One Piece situation. Because One Piece, they basically have to stretch it out to 1 chapter, 1 episode, which sometimes it's not too bad, but other times it's horrible. So a lot of people have talked about it that it would be better off going maybe 2 seasons a year tops instead of 52 episodes or whatever you get.
Okay.
Right, but they've been doing that with Assassination Classroom, Shokugeki no Soma, Haikyuu, Kuroku's Basket. They've been doing it like they make 1 season of 25 episodes, take a 3-core break, make another season, and then they go like that. And for some suddenly to go to 13 seasons with what I assume would be a 1-core break in between 2, 13 episode seasons is a little weird.
I don't really pay too much attention to currently airing in Japan anime, but 13 episodes it seems like it's not too uncommon for a one core thing.
It's
And
not.
I don't know how much. I don't know anything about this manga or how much story has happened yet. I know it's relatively new, right? So
Well,
maybe they just want to basically do let's adapt the first you know plot mini arc, partial arc, whatever in 13 episodes. Then we'll take a break, and then we'll continue the adaptation, in the fall or something. Is that
I
really that
mean,
unusual?
I mean,
Kind.
when with what so I mean, like I said, all of the recent Shonen Jump adaptations have been 25 episodes with no breaks. That would be their first season. Then they would take their long break and come back with a second 25 episode season, or even a third. Like Haikyuu is going into a third season.
So
But is it?
basically, we think that because the episode count is half what is typical, maybe that the breaks between are going to be smaller.
I mean, first off, we're assuming that it can't just be 13 episodes. That if it was 13 episodes, like some of the characters they're advertising wouldn't even appear in the show unless they're really booking it in the pacing. Like, the guy in my avatar wouldn't even be in there unless they were flying through.
Well, also depends on the pacing of the manga because if, like, say, I don't think it does move as slowly as Bleach in terms of what happens per chapter because I haven't read it. But if it does, say, move more slowly per chapter
It's a
than
very fast moving manga.
okay, so
It's very it does. I mean, that's one of my problems with it. I love it, but I feel like it needs to let itself stop and smell the roses a little bit more.
yeah, I mean,
So
it was never really a concept that I was jumping all up and down with, so I haven't really followed it much.
I've just kind of felt like with Funimation pushing it as their next huge thing, it feels like a no-brainer for Toonami later this year or early next year. And so it's like, hmm,
Funimation seems especially eager to get some of their stuff on TV. I mean, right now they're supporting the block more than anyone else, and they came to Jason with Dimension W and basically like, hey, put this on TV. So yeah, if they're pushing this as the next big thing, and it seems like a natural fit anyway, I assume they'll try to make it happen.
right. I can't imagine a situation where they don't like say, "Hey, I think you guys would want to air this. This is
Yeah,
pretty big. This is kind of getting big."
And yeah, and just like you said, it seems they'll come to Toonami. It seems like some places like Viz, I think they even said in a tweet once or twice, hey, if Toonami wants one of our shows, they have to ask us.
yeah,
Where Funimation is more like, they came to Jason with Dimension W, so if they want it on TV, they'll ask.
right.
Even if Jason doesn't know anything about this show, someone will make them know.
Well,
Right.
we just don't really know anything about what Viz is doing right now. I know they sent out that tweet, but I was like, are they telling the truth, or is that just kind of like well, they could ask us, but we would still give it to Hulu anyway?
I
It could just be some PR intern like just saying their own personal thought. Like I don't really
it
know how it works, but that's what I'm gonna say.
it's a good way to build up hype and sort of say, oh, they if like say Toonami and Jason get like a shit ton of tweets about something or other, it would allow Viz to charge a little bit more than if they went to them and said, hey, this is going to be big, put this on.
Like,
So
wring a little more money out of Hulu?
yeah, I think that's sort of the idea, sort of make it more of a bidding war.
Yeah. So, speaking of, other
What?
series with weird episode counts, the same French site is listing Diamond is Unbreakable as 39 episodes.
That
That's
makes
a little
sense.
bit weird because Stardust Crusaders was 4 core to cover all that, just that part of the manga, and Diamond is Unbreakable is just a little bit longer than that part, and so you feel like it's got to be at least 4 core as well.
Well, it could be that, they don't have, all the perfect information at this point, and they're just sort of guesstimating.
Right. But they should be getting the official information right from the license holders. I mean, they're the official streaming site for France.
I think that too, but, it could just be that they're getting estimates of it.
Personally, I don't think episode count at this point I don't know. I don't think it's that interesting. Like we'll see what happens when it starts airing. I don't know.
Right. I
Just
mean, maybe they're doing 5 cores this time and they're taking a break after 3.
that could be it.
It could be. So why don't we get into the block?
It's probably a good idea.
Hold on, I've got. Thanks, Metatron, for all your carefully researched TV guide things. This week on Dragon Ball Z Kai, we had episode 63, The Hunt for Dr. Gero, Discover the Hidden Laboratory.
This episode felt like original DBZ, where
A big fat nothing burger.
Yeah.
a bunch. So basically, at the very end of the last episode, they made a couple of plot revelations that Android 20 is actually Dr. Gero, and then those aren't the real androids.
I feel like we
Um,
already.
I think the actual Android 20 as Dr. Gero was only revealed to the other characters this episode.
At the very end of the last episode, yes, that's true. So at the very end of the last episode, Bulma kind of just said it to herself, and then at the beginning of this episode, she gets blown up, she crashes, and then tells everyone else. And then so that's fine. But then like this, they kind of just meander for a long time. There was this episode. There was a couple of additional scenes that literally had like no importance whatsoever for either narrative like plot or character reasons. For example, there was Gohan flying Bulma and Yajirobe home, like, and then they talked for a while about like nothing. And then there was like the dream sequence with Goku, which kind of just felt like it was dragged on. So I don't know.
Definitely episode that if they had, gotten rid of it, nothing would have really changed.
No.
Like
But
they're almost fundamentally in the same spot at the end as they were in the beginning.
I think
The
that's
only
probably because Toriyama's not that great at it. Like he was trying to do sort of like a mystery thing with suspense, and that's really not what he's good at.
Yeah, or maybe he was kind of in that middle of like, his editor had seen Android 19 and 20 is like, this isn't going to work either, man. Come on. And
yeah,
he's like, now what?
Fine.
yeah. So he might have taken that part of the story slowed down to kind of while he's thinking things out. Like, how am I gonna set this up now that I have to change things?
But of course, we don't. I mean, I guess that's just rumors, and we don't know what he's actually thinking. But in the end, like I said, this episode's kind of a huge nothing burger.
I think the next week's upcoming episode is pretty good though. It's the introduction of 17 and 18
They
basically,
shove all the content into that episode.
and
It would
16.
be double super hype.
I seem to remember someone saying that they kept some of the filler from original DBZ in this episode, the Goku's dream sequence.
That
I
would
wa-
explain a lot.
I wonder if basically, when they're streamlining this content to put it into the Kai version. I mean, obviously, you can't cut out everything. You can't have the characters just show up at the lab like randomly out of nowhere. So they needed a few of those scenes, but I wonder if they just couldn't fit it into that
One
like one episode, all having them show up at the lab and have all the stuff with 17 and 18 happen all in one episode. So they kind of had to just create a little padded episode, just
Probably.
the way that they had things covered already and whatever. So yeah, I think it's going to happen here and there when they have to include some filler. Otherwise it would flow too quickly, or um,
It would.
it wouldn't make sense if they cut it out entirely.
I
So
would.
I know the Frieza saga had a few things that they didn't remove because it would have been difficult to remove.
I wish they kept Goku and Piccolo learning to drive. That was fantastic.
Everyone wishes they still had that. It would be like a Naruto Kai without the mask episode.
Those are usually, talking about filler in general, those are usually the best filler episodes anyway. If you just take like this random one episode where they just do something totally stupid and wacky.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why it makes it seem so ridiculous how so much One Piece filler is, not great. It's like, just do a super comedy arc. Just
Yeah.
have everything. It's One Piece. How hard can it be?
I remember when Bleach was airing, they had the one episode that was the Lamp Society, which was kind of like a spoof of the Soul Society,
Yeah.
and I know it was based off of like a cover that Kubo made or whatever, but it was actually like filler, but it was entertaining filler, and it was only one episode, so if you didn't like it, it was only an episode. So
But I mean, with filler, you got to stretch it out to cover
right,
like weeks and
that's
weeks
kind
and
of the
weeks,
point of it, right?
and
Well,
then
what One Piece used to do for a little while was they turned the cover arcs because Oda would, he'd draw these series of covers that essentially turned into a story, and they turned that into an episode. Only nobody watched them because, they thought, oh, this isn't important, and now everyone sort of realizes, oh shit, that was important.
like it was before everyone realized, oh wait, those are all canon.
Yeah. It's like, nobody realized, oh, wait, every single thing in there you can mine for information for something that's going to happen later.
I mean, that's the reason we're still waiting for Eneru to come back from the goddamn moon
Oh, God.
with
There's,
a.
it,
Well, I shouldn't say
Spoilers.
anymore. Well, that's a cover story that's not covered in the manga, so or in the anime, I mean.
well, I mean,
So
a number of those that aren't.
anyway, I mean, this episode of Dragon Ball Z, there's really only two points of note is that everyone finds out Android 20 is Dr. Gero, and everyone finds out Trunks is Vegeta's son, and that's it.
Vegeta's still an asshole.
Vegeta is,
He does not take fatherhood very well.
No.
and he wants to fight the androids, and that's a bad idea. You should probably not let him fight the androids.
I'm assuming this topic will come up a few times as we talk about this show, but I do think it's kind of funny how Trunks came back in time 3 years before any of this happened to tell everyone this, and when he leaves, they discuss, hey, why don't we just destroy the androids now? And then, they kind of hand wave why they're not going to. Obviously, they can't have a story if they just knock out the androids.
It's also because they're idiots.
Yeah, but I wonder though when Trunks showed up 3 years, before all that, why he didn't? Why wasn't that his original plan? Like, hey, I'm gonna go find the androids wherever they're sleeping right now and destroy them.
I think maybe he just wanted to leave as small a footprint as he could.
That's actually a good point. He probably figured he was probably paranoid about changing the timeline too much, and just
Well,
wanted to warn them and like, okay, that's all I'm gonna do. But unbeknownst to him, the timeline was already.
that was a whole waste of time, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, the Dragon Ball Z time travel thing is less, Back to the Future and more like, alternate dimension style.
So I was actually talking with my brother about like the time travel rules. I believe most of it works out in the way they set it up, except for one thing. We'll talk about it more later, but I don't think there's any believable argument as to why Cell shows up in that timeline the way he does. So
Because he has to be there because the editor
Right.
didn't like Android 17 and 18.
I thought they were fun.
I think 17 and 18 are pretty fun. Yeah, they're not your stereotypical villains.
Yeah.
Where Cell is a little bit more stereotypical.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, speaking of alternate dimension wonkiness, Dimension W, Episode 5, The Possibilities of the Dead. I have no idea what happened in this episode.
Something alternate timeline dimension.
Okay, so
Right.
this was the follow-up. This was the second part of a two-parter
Yes.
thing. This is one of those cases where I think watching it as a group watch, where maybe your full attention isn't on the show, it might be a detriment to it because something might be introduced literally in like a one character line or one 10-second scene, or if you're not paying attention for that moment, you're lost for the whole rest of the episode.
So, like the entirety of Michiko and Hachin.
Yes.
So and I think one of the issues was in episode 4, the last episode. This is episode 5, right?
Yes.
In episode 4, they introduced a bunch of characters at like this mansion. They introduced a good half dozen characters very, very quickly, and at the time, you the viewer aren't really sure which of these characters is like a key important character, which one is just kind of like filling the the settings. So you weren't really sure which characters were the important ones, which ones you had to really pay attention to or whatever. Um, and they introduced them just so quickly without like a really describing who they were at that point too much. And then all this stuff happens where we learn that the main guy, who's the main character there, I forget his name. That's another thing too. Some of their names were pretty generic.
I
I
mean, I
think
don't think some of them even had names.
Yeah,
I think part of the confusion is that they squeezed so much into the 2 episodes, and that maybe they could have stretched it out into 3.
yeah.
They
But they had to make sure they got those fan service scenes in.
Oh, of course, we gotta see Lolly robot ass or whatever the hell it was.
Ah, man.
Anyways, so when the first episode aired, and like the first episode, I mean episode 4, the previous episode for this, basically Mira started noticing was the first one to notice just things going weird. Like it started to get stormy. There was started a bit like the ghosts and things like that. And I think it was pretty apparent at that point that there were that there were 2 overlapping realities. I thought that part, that there was kind of like these 2 alternate dimensions, being the key word. I thought that part made sense. But the part that was confusing to me, and I think threw me for a loop, was kind of the rules they set up for how these realities interacted with each other. It had something to do with like the lake water and how they appeared in the other dimension as like a ghost.
Like the ghost from the he saved everyone dimension
Right.
can only manifest with the lake water. So like when it gets really misty.
Yeah, so
And
that
that's how
part I
they
thought
killed him, by having the maid, who was the daughter of the guy in the dam that he killed. And oh man, this is so convoluted, but she switched out the water in his
Yeah.
water thing, which he kept because, that's the reason he had a whole water thing in his office, because he needs the safe source of water, I guess.
Yeah.
He switched out with the lake water, and there you go.
Yeah, so I felt the rules for the 2 things. I felt that the setup for having these 2 alternate overlapping dimensions, I felt like the general idea of it was fine, but the way they kind of introduced and set up these rules for how they interact with each other, that's where I felt like it could have been presented better in terms of explaining. Like I think that if it almost feels like they wanted it to be spooky and mystery, so much to the detriment of actually making sense.
I think when the old author guy showed up and started talking to the younger, alternate dimension author guy, is when I was like, wait, what? How is he here? What the hell? It's like, he died. Why? I get why the other guy is still alive. He's still alive in the other dimension. It's like, but why is this dead guy here as a ghost?
And I also feel like in these episodes they had a mix of most of the present day narrative was through the eye points of our main characters, either Kiyoma or Mira, and they kind of threw these flashbacks in there with these more mansion, the particular characters around these set of episodes. And I felt like that those maybe needed to be reordered differently, because I got a little bit confused when they were switching perspectives, and I felt like it wasn't in the best order to make the most sense.
Right. Also doesn't make sense when you're going to rape a girl and film it with your camera.
Oh God. No, I mean, in terms of switching perspective, I think they might have just done it a little too much. Like this is sort of why I say maybe a 3rd episode would be good. Sort of in the middle, instead of having the perspective switch around so much. Just squeeze all that sort of flashback stuff into a middle episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything else around it.
And it was, I think they wanted it to be mysterious at first, so they had all this weird stuff happening, kind of intentionally supposed to be confusing, and then they we'll explain it with a flashback, but that's not. I don't think that's the best way to approach it.
Right. If you're going to do a mystery, you have to explain it sort of very clearly.
And it's just not easy to explain something clearly when it involves multiple dimensions interacting with each other at the same time.
Well, I mean, it. I think the problem is they didn't spend enough time on it. I mean, it's something that we sort of explained to each other and got explained to us. So it's clearly something that can be explained. It's just they didn't spend enough time on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's like total. It wasn't like nonsensical. It was
No,
just poorly presented.
yes,
I think we're already. I mean, I kind of feel like this is the last episode I saw when it was originally airing. Because after this, they said, "Hey, it's on Toonami." And I was like, "Cool, I'll stop." But the thing I've been kind of, thinking is that, oh, so these numbers or the coils overall are just going to be do whatever the plot requires
Yeah,
machines, and
I
that's
mean
going
that's
to lead to some confusion when you
like
have
there.
this crutch that you can use to just have any rule set you need at any one time.
I
I
mean the problem with that though, because there are a bunch of series that do that. It's just in how it's handled, and it has to be explained properly.
yeah, I agree. It does leave a lot of flexibility. Basically, these number coils can affect like dimensions, time, space type things.
Right,
So that leaves a lot of flexibility in what they can do, but I do think that it opens in the kind of in the same vein, it opens possibilities for maybe some interesting ideas. Like I think that second episode having like this number coil go crazy and kind of creating like these weird
Well,
four
that actually
dimensional
wasn't a number
copies.
coil. That was just regular illegal coils.
Oh, yeah, maybe I'm getting mixed up on this. But yeah, I think having like this fourth dimension, there are a few things that it opens some possibilities for some, weird magic voodoo shit. But
yeah,
it is extremely flexible in what they can do. So yeah, there is a little sense of magic MacGuffin type. We can
but
have it do lots of different things.
yeah.
So that's one thing going forward is making sure these rules seem to have any sort of consistency to them.
Right. That's the big thing is, if you're gonna have a Magic MacGuffin item thing like that, be that flexible, it also has to have set limitations on it. Otherwise, it's just gonna turn into, I had
Magical MacGuffin.
no, I mean I had an idea of a series that, sort of did something like that, and we were all sort of like, oh yeah, we just sort of waved it off as no, it wasn't shit. I can't remember what that.
This isn't really a good comparison at all, but for whatever reason, it reminds me of Philosopher's Stones in FMA. But
Oh yeah.
that's more just like that's more just. I think that one is more rigid in its rules, and it doesn't really affect the world around them. It's like it enhances powers, but the way the stones are constructed is very clearly and deliberately specific.
That's the
So
grand line in One Piece. How you can basically any arc you want. It's fine.
Because of all the weather and
Yeah,
it's like magnets.
yeah. So you don't have to worry about anything. You can just do whatever crazy shit you want to do with it, which really should open it up for filler. But they never could get it to work.
I mean, I've always imagined that the prime issue with long-running shonen filler is that they like go to the meat, like they have to, make sure that they're not using something the actual author is planning to use, and so they go in and they're like, look at all this cool stuff, and the author's like, huh, that's a really good idea. You can't use that. I'm going to use it.
and sometimes you do see where like and you do see in some things like Naruto how sometimes an idea later it's like, hey, this reminds me of a filler from a while back. It's like maybe they got inspiration from the anime team
I mean, one of
in
the
that
things
way.
Naruto filler that always sort of pissed me off is there's so much that Kishimoto never touches on in the actual story that they just routinely ignore. Like other characters, team combinations and shit, and it's like,
It should be their time to shine, but it's
yeah,
just so lame.
yeah. I mean,
I don't obviously I don't write stories or do anything like that, but like let's talk. We'll talk about this later, but when we talk about
Or we
Naruto,
won't because
or we won't talk about.
we'll save
Yeah,
some time and anyway.
you both.
So
But I would think, yeah, like when you have things like the Three Tails, and from what I understand, this really isn't covered in the manga, so you think it's kind of, open enough that they can use that in filler to their advantage. And like, hey, we have a bunch of characters that the actual author of the manga barely touches. We have this three tail. Hey, we can put together a story with this, and they just totally fail at it, and it's just
Especially because it has a defined endpoint. You know exactly what happens to the three tails.
it
So,
has to get there through whatever
yeah,
convoluted method it has to.
right. And
Anyway,
we'll talk about that later, maybe.
maybe. Parasite the Maxim, episode 22, Repose and Awakening.
This
Miki
is
kinda dies in this episode, maybe.
no, he totally dies, I think.
I mean, we have his eye at the end, popping off from his severed arm stump, but
There's still like little, from what I understand about how it works, there's still little cells of him in there, but none of that, but like there's not enough in there for him to like have consciousness or anything anymore. Wondering how exactly he's going to grow the arm back because there's no way they keep him with only one arm.
yeah, that just can't work.
No,
I mean, how is he going to hold the flamethrower he needs?
yes, exactly.
You really should have brought a flamethrower. I mean, you told them, hey,
Yeah,
bring a flamethrower. And
or
then
at least that, or at least a lighter and a spray can or something, an aerosol can or something. I mean, damn.
and then you spent the entire episode with an old man who runs a flamethrower store.
No, that was an old lady.
No, he was saying it should have been a flamethrower store.
No, yeah, it should have, but it was an old lady, not an
I
old
know it
man.
was an old lady, but really, it was
Yeah.
kind of. She was so. I've smoked 12 packs a second for
Oh,
15 years.
yeah.
Okay, so first of all, in the previous episode, they had this little like army-assisted parasite lockdown plan, kind of failed. Um,
It's
and
pretty
then
Well, it
wild.
seems like they got all the parasites except for the super duper
except for
parasite.
yeah, except for the Goto.
Well, they
Um,
also killed the mayor, which,
and then Goto, and then uh, Shinichi does his girlfriend, and then Goto basically just decides I'm gonna get that guy, and then
I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna kill him.
so I think Metatron mentioned this in the thread. It kind of jumps to this what
yeah,
almost seemed like a final battle type setup, like Shinichi versus Goto.
I feel like the
Uh,
entire character development arc between like last episode and this episode, you know?
but yeah, it felt like it jumped quickly, but also it's just the way that it kind of jumped from this battle between Shinichi and Goto to then like
Bang.
literally Shinichi just kind of wandering around, missing his arm, running in living with an old grandma for like literally several days to several weeks.
I'm pretty sure it was like a week.
Yeah,
I'm
it was
hearing
it was a little bit it was more than just a night. Yeah, it was kind of like several days like actually living with her. I don't know, that just kind of felt a little awkward at this point in the anime. Like there's two episodes after this.
just girlfriend be like, "Hey, I'm hanging out with an old grandma."
Yeah.
So
I felt like some of the just having that happen at this point, two episodes from the end, that felt a little bit awkward.
This probably should have been when he was running through the forest the last time.
Maybe, yeah. But anyways, yeah, Migi died. It was kind of like Migi's consciousness and the majority of his cells or whatever were in his arm, and then they were spread across the body. So yeah, his arm detached, Migi died, and then those kind of remnant cells are still there, but kind
Not
of, when Migi first like spread across the rest of Shinichi's body, that's what caused him to start like falling asleep every once in a while because it like
that's what gave Shinichi the superpowers.
yeah.
how it became Parasite Man.
So no more superpowers, no more Migi because he died.
No, he still got the superpowers.
Does he?
Yeah, I think
I
so.
We haven't seen him do. I mean, that's kind of I guess a question for next episode if he still has
Even
his super.
even his hair is kind of back down to his.
Well, I mean, in terms of the superpowers, it was more he had them because Migi's cells sort of spread through his body. It wasn't dependent on sort of me being there.
Well, in any case, he's missing an arm.
Yeah.
Yep, as that's where we are.
Well,
He's lost an arm.
and I do think it's kind of weird though. Like when they got into this confrontation with Goto, Migi knew, and they kind of knew from the past, like, hey, fire is pretty effective against this guy. Um,
Well, they were stuck in the middle of a forest with no method of creating any, large blast of fire,
right.
sustained fire. But they
I,
really should have thought of that beforehand.
I just kind of feel like, okay, so we know that Goto, or what he's transformed into, is in this forest. I should probably tell somebody that. I should probably let people know that he's there, and that we can get some people with flamethrowers or any
Yeah.
way to create fire
Well,
to
the
approach
public
them.
at large still doesn't know about the parasites.
But I'd at least set the forest on fire, burn that sucker down.
But, how are you going to convince them to do that? It's like,
That, that,
hey,
that,
there's this
that's
monster in the forest, burn it down.
That seems extreme, but I do think, especially after what happened with that lockdown at the school or wherever that was,
Buy it.
you would think he would have some place to call or somebody like, hey, I don't know, well, anyway, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that fire is going to have something to do.
I think he's just set the garbage dump on fire and be done with it.
Somebody did mention that. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, that
It-
looks like a burnable thing.
Yeah.
And it would fit really well with the environmental impact thing that Parasite's going on, that it
Yep.
beats you over the head with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It could be being a little more subtle, I think.
it is pretty blunt.
It's an 80s show. It's literally an 80s manga adapted in the 2010s.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like Captain Planet had a little bit more subtlety than
That's how Goto is defeated. He's just like, oh wait, power of heart, Captain Planet,
Power of recycling.
power of coexistence with man-eating parasites.
I will say many of the things in previous episodes totally give me a Resident Evil vibe, and not just because of like zombies, but almost just I don't know, just even like having
Resident Evil 4 vibes, basically.
even that junkyard. It's like, hey, that kind of I don't know why, but that junkyard kind of reminds me of like the ending set piece of Resident Evil 5, which I know was a volcano, but I could just imagine it. Like I can imagine it on fire and having.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I mean,
Kick Goto into a volcano.
Yeah.
only they were near Mount Fuji, which would actually be a pretty cool place to have the final fight in that sort of suicide forest thing.
Well, I don't think Mount Fuji has actual law. It's an extinct volcano. There's no lava there.
But I'm kind of imagining the series ending with like a fiery battle in the junkyard as they're trying to burn this thing, and he just won't die. So
I actually think that I'm pretty sure I've seen footage of you remember the serial killer guy?
yeah.
I think he's the final villain because I've seen footage of him killing people and Shinichi's there. And so I think it's like episode 23, he gets rid of Goto, and then he suddenly has to deal with what's his face.
I don't even know his name. It's serial killer. Does he even have a name? He does.
Serial killer guy who's also kind of a rapist and got arrested for something he didn't do.
And is one of the good voices in the
Yeah. I'm hyped for Akainu in One Piece to show up more. It's going to be really good if that's the voice.
So what happened to that serial killer? I know he ran away when he could.
He is in the wind, as far as we know.
Right.
He is free.
He escaped. He killed that guy and he escaped.
So it is sensible that he would show up again. Otherwise, it would feel a little bit unresolved.
Yeah, he's definitely going to show up before the end.
Only 2 more episodes, and then we'll talk about what might be replacing it later.
I guess so. So, moving on to Samurai Champloo, episode 13, Misguided Miscreants, part 1. This is kind of our beginning of Mugen's backstory episode, I suppose.
Yeah, right. Before this, first of all, am I the only one of us 3 who hasn't seen this, or?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it, but I was what was I, 16 at the time? So
you remember bits and pieces, type.
yeah.
Anyway. So anyways, yeah, it was about time we got some Mugen backstory. So we knew it was coming, and it's not totally unexpected that he like grew up with not the best community. He apparently grew up on an island full of, basically he's a descendant of, and his friends are the descendants of, you know, thieves and robbers and killers and murderers. So
They're Australians.
yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Gentor.
No, he has to understand that he is related to thieves and horrible people.
But he's got his, that guy is Mukuro. He was such a transparently nasty guy. It's like, hey, he massacred the entire village, and he wants you to do this whole deal. It's like, this will go well.
yeah. So it's pretty apparent that Mugen is not
A nice guy.
he's not a morally ideal guy.
No, but
Um,
he,
and let me just mention that I know some people like that alone is like, I don't like this character because he's not a perfect angel.
Well, Spike Spiegel was an assassin.
But anyways, now we're kind of learning why. And he always talks about, and it was almost kind of cliche to a point, like, I only look out for me, I only care about myself, blah, blah, blah. But if he really did grow up, in that type of environment, and we don't really get to see a lot of it, but we're told of it by the girl, Koza is her name, I guess.
I
Um,
I was like, Fuza,
I wouldn't know
Cozy.
the name, but I know someone in the thread kept mentioning it, so I saw it enough. So Koza, anyways, it sort of makes sense that in that type of environment, if it's the kind of the trite kill or be killed, you look out for number one first type of thing.
And that's why she knows this guy, her brother, is like a horrific piece of crap, and she can't leave him because she's like, I can't deal without him. I mean,
Yeah,
it does.
especially it's Edo, Japan. It's like
and
the
we
second he's out of the picture, she's in a prostitute house for all we know, because that keeps happening to Fu.
yeah, and we didn't really get to see a lot of the backstory. Maybe we'll see more in the next episode. But
We only saw Mugen jumping off the cliff.
yeah, and basically what Koza told us about the island. But apparently she is, or not apparently, obviously she is drawn to Mugen. But I can kind of believe that, considering her brother is kind of an asshole, and
Totally.
Mugen seems like, even the way that Mugen treats Fu at times seems the better alternative, at least, even if he's not a very nice guy himself. So
He's still a dick, but he's not completely an asshole.
I mean, he's not going to go out of your way to fuck you over like Mukuro will.
yeah.
Maybe.
So maybe, and she said something like that. Mugen said some sappy thing about like the stars looking down at them, and they're nothing but grains of sand or something. So it seems like Mugen does have some sentimental side at times, even if he doesn't want to admit it. He's a little bit of a tsundere, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone clicking a pen or something?
I am not.
Okay.
Anyways,
Sorry.
I think that might just be feedback. Anyways, so Mugen kind of foolishly does like a game of chicken with this guy and loses, and so they ran horses off the cliff, and like whoever pulls back first loses.
And so it ends up being whoever catches onto the lowest ledge of the cliff.
So they both jumped off
Fuck
the
you,
cliff.
horses.
Rip horses.
Horses are expensive,
May they
right?
rest in peace. And I guess because Mukuro fell further, he wins. So basically, Mugen felt like he has to go along with his plan to steal money from this trade ship. And then it turns out that
Mukuro is just pulling a full Joker. He's killing everyone and getting away with all the money.
Oh, yes. I wouldn't be surprised if he burns the money, too.
Kills that guy, burns the money.
Yeah.
and Mugen is probably dead.
Nah, he's not dead.
I'm joking. Obviously, he's not dead.
So
If he was, though.
I wasn't a whole fan of the little girl character in this episode for some reason. I mean,
Well, she doesn't have much of a character at this point.
she just kind of sits around and is like, "Oh, Mugen, I wish we could leave, but we can't.
I think
The stars."
I think there's a number of characters that, first of all, being a two-part episode, I feel like this episode I wasn't a huge fan of.
No,
I do think it's nice to see some backstory finally, and I do think it explains some of the mannerisms and tendencies that Mugen, why he is the way he is. But being a two-parter, I feel like I can't really judge it until I see what happens in the next episode.
exactly.
Um,
What the story is for this particular episode has been worth it is going to be entirely decided next week.
yeah, but I do think characters like Koza, while they're not maybe especially interesting, I do think they can be useful. It helps to show how much of an asshole Mukuro is. It helps to kind of explain some of the dynamics that they had on the island. It's just I hope maybe we'll see a little bit more of her and Mugen's relationship in the past, and maybe it'll seem more compelling at that point.
Yeah, you have to show it and not tell it.
Right. We don't really know why she's so uh, attached to him too much. I said earlier that I do think it's a little bit believable, but it's right now there isn't a whole lot to go on. So
Yeah.
Part
also
of this,
also the voice acting it's Stephanie Sheh, um,
Oh
who is
well.
who is
A
Hinata
lot.
or Hime. But anyways, I don't know if this is trying to emulate what she sounded like in Japanese, but she kind of sounds bored and depressed and very monotone, which again
Constantly whispering.
yeah, which again I think is I think that's sensible in a case because she probably doesn't have a whole lot to be cheery about, but
yeah.
it kind of comes across as kind of dull. But we'll see. I like I said just a second ago, we'll see where they go with this. So
Yep.
Part of me is sort of hoping, since I don't remember, that the little girl is, sort of the brains behind the operation here. Like she's gonna pull a heel turn and rip
she,
off the mask. Like it was me, Mugen. It
that
was
she's
me.
that she's actually in league with her brother, and that they're
Like she's the leader of the gang because she's the smart one.
She
Because
was the bait in the trap, so
yeah, because I mean, there's obviously some kind of reason that she's being kept around.
I
You
did
know,
like how they were kind of like, "Hey, you just killed two of my guys," but that's okay.
yeah, because her brother doesn't seem like the sort of guy who'd be sentimental enough to take care of her if she didn't offer something to him. Like he's that kind of asshole, I think.
Or she's literally just, his morality chain, and that's literally the only human part of him is that he cares about her. Because like he tells her about his intentions to kill everyone off.
yep.
Hmm.
Like he's straight up like honest with her, no even knowing she might just go and tell Mugen.
And then he sensually caresses her face,
We get all.
Oh boy, oh boy.
like just like normal brothers and sisters.
I
Yeah,
mean, if she was the mastermind, that would be a full Sword Art Online move. I don't think it's gonna pull something like that.
it'd be hilarious, but it's probably not.
Yeah, this is not that kind of show, fortunately.
I'm glad.
Unfortunately, next up is Naruto Shippuden,
Oh,
episode 105, The Battle Over the Barrier. Who gives a fuck? One Piece episode 339.
I mean, if I can go back to the Naruto thing, it's like all the pieces are there for this to be good, but it sucks for reasons that it just does.
Two things. First of all, I think this two things. I think Naruto, filler or not, is kind of the king of some good ideas on paper, some good ideas, in thought or in theory. It has
Right.
potential, but then failed execution kind of
Yeah,
everywhere. Um,
I said this
so
times.
so I
Like,
think
that
the filler part of
is
that too. Sorry.
setting is fantastic. The backstory is great. It should all come together into something that's completely awesome, and yet more often than not, it falls completely on its ass. Which isn't to say it doesn't live up to its potential at times, because it does. And there's an arc coming up that's one of my favorites, and it works really well, and it's awesome.
Do you mean the pain arc
Yes,
and kind of the
yeah,
build up to that? I know
I
that
mean, the
one is pretty
problem is at the
popular.
ending, I mean, that's
and
the point where the series has officially gone to crap because of the one moment.
yeah.
At that point, the series cannot be saved.
I mean, there was like the way that arc ends is like total bullshit. but everything up to that point is so excellent, and I'm like, why
It
can't
probably
you,
should have been the ending of Naruto.
I
or
do
at
th-
least the ending of part two, you know?
I
What
do
was
th-
been there?
I do think some of these thoughts of just in Naruto's general potential is one reason why it was as successful as it was. It just
You can obviously see that there's something really good in there, and you keep waiting for it to happen.
and then it kind of just falters, more often than not. So,
But then
anyways,
those moments that's so great, and then you're like, why is this not all the time?
Just cut. I mean, the writer. I guess you got to go back to the writer on that one. He
Yeah,
has some good ideas, but he just can't really
make it
live
work.
up to what they have. He
I
just can't
think part of
deliver.
that, I think part of that's also on the editors because, I am sort of like that's sort of what I do for a living is I write things and like the difference between a good editor and a bad editor, like a good editor can turn something that's got a lot of potential and is very good, it can turn it into something fantastic, while a bad editor, will completely be asleep on the job and only think about, the paycheck at the end.
Or even worse, is like a
Oh God.
hands-on editor, which is I think what happened in early Naruto. He's like, hey, he's got to have a rival. Hey, he's got to have a love
That,
interest.
but I
So
mean
you get
that worked,
Sasuke and Sakura.
you know,
okay.
that did work. It helped,
Yeah, well, to avoid getting into just a general Naruto discussion,
Yes.
but I do think just in general that one of the biggest failings of the show is that this relationship between Naruto and Sasuke, which is kind of the core of the entire show,
Built
is
up.
never established properly. So the fact that everything is centered on
It
that
doesn't.
really dilutes it.
I
They
feel like it wasn't supposed to be the core of the show until like it was
did
supposed to be something different at first, and then they decided halfway through part one that this is going to be the thing because it's basically all of part two is that.
Yeah, if they had put in like two more arcs, not even long ones, but sort of just short ones like the Zabuza arc before, sort of the heel turn happens, I think, it would work because even in the anime, they have a small filler arc between the two, and it does help, with building up that relationship a little more.
Right.
What I think is a little bit funny, and this is a minor spoiler, is I think coming up, basically a lot of the villains, when they talk to Naruto, it's like, man, you're still about Sasuke, aren't you? And he's like,
Yeah,
and it's kind of like
it's
talking
like
like the audience, like,
I
yep, he still is for some reason.
mean, even characters start calling him out on that shit. It's like, really, bro, this, come on, I'll do whatever you want.
And then they try to frame it like, no, he's so devoted to him, and this is a thing we're supposed to be, you know,
But it's just creepy.
good of. Yeah. Anyways, going back to this filler, one of
Yes.
the main problems
Naruto
of
is
it.
definitely creepy because he's had this thing with Yukimaru where he's like, no, I don't accept your choices. You're coming with me, man. It's like, who the fuck are you?
Well, I mean, in fairness to that, a responsible adult would sort of notice that, hey, this kid's in a fucked up situation. You should get him out of there. Like, Ninja Child Protective Services should be on this shit.
Well, Ninja Child Protective Services got murked a long time ago.
Oh, no doubt. Itachi killed them.
I'm pretty sure that's literally Kabuto's backstory.
I think it is too.
I think we have, but that's more spoilers. But I mean, it's Naruto Shippuden, and I mean, people are probably going to be spoil. We may spoil people, but do people really care at this point?
Well, actually, I don't even. Naruto is one of those shows I actually do know a little bit what happens past the airing, but I haven't seen much past like even part of the pain arc. So I actually don't know what you're talking about with Kabuto's backstory, but I don't feel like I'm spoiled because first of all,
Nah,
you didn't say anything really, and second of all, I don't care.
it involves ninja nuns.
Yeah. Well, also,
Fairly generic. If you've seen, one sort of, you know, like the backstory is very done, in Japan and the US and England, like it's very generic.
anyways, one of the biggest problems of this filler arc, I think, which really shouldn't be that much of a problem in filler, is how it drags so much. Like
Oh,
How are
Why
there
is
8 more episodes?
why is this
they
24 episodes long? And I feel like
should be
with
just
something like filler, if you need to fill more space, you can always just have more stuff happen. But
yeah,
instead, they uh, just
like they had time to
it just
write.
meanders so much.
Like they had a time to write a script for 12 episodes, and then they're like, "Oh shit, we need to double it." And instead of rewriting the script, they're like, "Nah, we'll just drag it out a bit. They won't notice."
Or making it just new, unrelated 12-episode arc.
It could
I
be
mean,
their.
it wouldn't have turned out great, but
I mean, it's filler, so there's only so much you can do. But it's still just this current arc is probably the worst Naruto content out of anything up to this point.
I mean, you're probably going to get a lot of challenge with that for the current stuff in the actual anime, where it's like, don't let it end. Just make whatever. I mean, they've literally animated and shown a sequel movie before the series is even done.
and like the video game came out that covers the ending.
Oh yeah. I did want to
Anyway,
bring up a point in this that I noticed is that they kind of got all the female characters out of the way by having them do something that is also kind of nothing.
and then they
Yeah,
It just
failed.
involves them just kind of standing around.
which is a shame because I mean, someone like Hinata is like criminally underused.
They all are really.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
I wouldn't exactly say Sakura and Ino are criminally underused, man.
Well, Sakura maybe not, but too
Ino,
bad the way she is used is not very good.
good.
Ino, like Sakura, has a character completely defined by Sasuke and her relationship to him.
hmm Anyways, One Piece.
One Piece.
So
Yep.
I am definitely the only one who hasn't seen this.
Oh yeah. So this
Oh,
episode's I feel like in terms of thriller bark, the first 2 episodes with Brooks' introduction are fantastic, and then it's kind of like meandering around until Brooks shows back up again,
Okay,
which is like
so
like
and
15, 20
still fun.
episodes.
It,
this is a more general comment on One Piece,
it's more
but okay, so One Piece ever since well, I mean One Piece kind of in general as well, but especially since Enies Lobby, it has some pretty slow pacing as well. But one thing it does, I'll generally better than Naruto or lots of other shows, Bleach, is that it's established its characters pretty well. So it can drag things out with more character interactions, whether they're comedic or not.
The
Um,
moment-to-moment character
and
writing is just leagues above
like
anything
like
those other shows can do.
like for instance, they fell in that Nami, Usopp, and Chopper fell in that ravine, um, and they kind of just chat for a while about nothing in particular, like how they got there, where they are, whatever. And then they do some comedy stuff.
They do
Uh,
the double take with the, oh yeah, we're standing on a ton of skeletons,
yeah,
and Nami has the Wile E. Coyote
made by
sign.
the universe.
and then they run away with they're running from this Cerberus wolf thing. Um,
Which
so
has a fox head.
now could you like imagine if that was like Naruto and Sai and
Oh God, shoot me in the face.
yeah, like it's a similar situation in another show with those characters would be awful. But it
They're running
works.
from the Cerberus, and it's like, so how's your work on your diary going along?
Yeah. So I think that's one reason why One Piece just works in general better than its competitors is that the characters just interacting with each other is amusing. In other shows, it's like in other shows you might be more interested in just okay, what happens next? I don't care about these characters, but I might be interested in what happens, but they're taking too long to get there. Where One Piece, I understand that it might take a while in this arc for the real arc to start, for things to start happening. I don't know, I haven't seen it, but knowing that it's 40 episodes long or whatever, I can imagine it will be. But just
This arc
seeing,
is a little bit padded out, and I feel like it's mostly in this early part before Brooke like shows up again.
you just spoiled that Brooke shows up again.
Of course, it goes up again.
I'm joking.
But it's more of a spoiler that he kind of, isn't around for a few episodes now.
I mean, I think that was kind of a given. He's on. So
Well,
Brooke is on the island. Usopp, Nami, and
Chopper.
Chopper are on the island, and then the other four, I'm assuming we'll get there eventually.
Yeah,
And
they'll get
then,
there, and then
and
they will
then
have many, 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 many hilarious shenanigans. I mean, this is the funniest arc of One Piece,
Oh,
period.
funny.
It is just laugh out loud, drop dead funny almost every episode. Like, you can make a huge list of all the hilarious running gags.
And
that's also one thing One Piece does better than most is actually amusing comedy. So I'm up for a more comedic arc. Enies Lobby had some, but
I mean, the next arc is very sort of, serious and darker. So, we
And the
need.
next arc is actually pretty silly until shit goes down.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like we sort of need. Well, I mean, even the end of this arc, like shit goes down and gets really dark at one point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, man, I'm just kind of the thing with One Piece is whenever you start talking about One Piece, you start thinking way ahead.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking ahead to like next year, basically, where it's like you've got the stuff at the ending of Thriller Bark, you've got all the Sabo 80 stuff, and it's like, man, we're gonna have to have like a 5-item final, final category for best moment, and it's all gonna be One Piece.
Yeah.
But so
so
I've
so not so
enjoyed that
not
they brought the Mary back, even if
yeah.
only for like a single episode, because think I think it disappears after this one, except for a few appearances later.
No, it definitely comes back a little bit here and there. I can think of one moment specifically, that's more recent where it does reappear. The shark submarine maybe shows up one more time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, not too much happened in this episode, but it was still amusing to watch, like I said. One question though, they at the very end of the episode they mentioned the little bat guy mentioned Dr. Hogback.
Oh,
Has this guy been mentioned before at
No,
all?
this is
Okay.
he's a new character for this arc.
Okay, so
That's kind of
with
the
One Piece, sometimes I always have to wonder, like, I wonder if this was brought up earlier,
well, it's
and I don't
basically
remember it.
Chopper's big storyline for this arc involves him, Dr. Hogback.
because he's,
He's a doctor.
yeah, he's a very famous doctor that sort of went
I mean, I doubt this is much of a stretch. Obviously, I don't know much about One Piece after this point, but I'm assuming Dr. Hogback, considering the setting and all that, is more like, Dr. Frankenstein than anything else.
Yeah, that's almost directly the influence.
Yeah.
yeah, this is very much a horror movie influenced arc.
This is Scooby-Doo, the arc.
Yeah.
But it also has more traditional horror movie like moments in there as well. Like there's one that's going to happen in a couple episodes that I'm interested to see how much they have to censor because,
Well, I've been watching the DVD releases, and
yeah,
the scene involves a lot of
the-
convenient steam.
I know, but how much would they have to censor for like the broadcast is sort of what I'm wondering.
I don't know, man.
They seem to get Adult Swim. First of all, I'm assuming that we're gonna see Nami in provocative situations. Is my guess.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
I mean that's kind of a trope with horror anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm not inherently against it. Obviously, they'll probably take the opportunity to go pretty fan servicey with it. Um, luckily Nami has an actual character to her, so it kind of feels like uh, there's I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I could accept some fan service here and there, considering Nami is actually one of the better Straw Hats anyway.
yeah, like they'd all be dead without her.
Yeah, but what was I gonna say? Adult Swim can get away with quite a bit, I think, nowadays. It feels like
I feel like as long as
was,
they don't show a nip, it's fine.
was that Dimension W little scene altered at all? That got pretty.
I don't think so.
There was a lot of skin there, and obviously Kill la Kill. Obviously Kill la Kill had a few things removed, but
A lot of shit in that one that I didn't think they'd be able to get away with. Like even that time of night, I'm like, what
I think
the hell is this?
Kill la Kill was especially weird because especially like as it neared the conclusion, it felt like they got even more lax on some of the on what they could do. It's just like they almost like their standard and practices department was just like, yeah, whatever. Go
They were
ahead.
just like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Just fuck it. Just
Garrett,
don't show it.
Like,
You're good.
I can't be bothered. It's too late at night. I don't get paid enough.
they keep saying they don't get paid for Toonami, but that's not really even true.
I mean, they get paid. I mean, they work on Toonami under
And
Adult Swim, and they get paid to be Adult Swim.
But they don't get paid extra for Toonami.
Right.
I just think the way that Jason puts it is kind of. There's someone's phone.
Sorry.
That's fine. I think the way Jason puts it, like I'm not paid for this, is a little bit not genuine. It's like,
It's like you're getting paid for this.
I mean, I think most people can
They
can
get
relate, can relate to. I got a job, and then somewhere along the way, I got some new tasks that I wasn't originally doing, but now I'm doing. But I can't just, I can't just quit doing those new tasks. That's part of my job now, type of thing. So, especially if he's like doing trips to Japan and getting Fooly Cooly set up.
Well, I think part of it was like when they started off, they didn't have much of a budget for the actual thing.
Yeah, but now it's pretty much, especially it seems to be basic. I mean, what Toonami now is basically a rebranded Adult Swim Action, and that's not a bad thing.
No.
I mean,
Brings,
it's the packaging that has always made Toonami, really.
yeah.
I mean, they haven't updated the bumpers with.
That's the thing they've been doing is that what is their budget, and is that a cost saving measure? Because nowadays they're only updating the bumpers like every other lineup change.
Like, I think part of it is they're spending money on shows now, and they might have a set amount of money to work with for the block. And
But is a new bumper set every lineup change really that?
I wonder how time consuming making those bumpers are. It might be deceptively time consuming.
I
Well,
will say that if there's this one scene upcoming in One Piece that is not a bumper, I will be very pissed.
oh, I know.
I'm sure you know what it is,
Is
but
that
it's
the
just,
is that the punch?
no, not it's a
That's
comedy scene.
Well, I
No,
mean, there's
I
some
don't know.
serious things that should absolutely be bumpers too.
I might be totally wrong on this, but I think I have seen that GIF with Luffy punching someone, and I think it's from this arc.
No,
It's
no.
from the next arc.
Oh.
If it's the Luffy punching GIF, it's from the next arc.
Oh, okay. See,
You
I don't know.
but you probably have seen this thing I'm talking about in a GIF.
Maybe.
It's an absolutely crazy scene. The gift does not do it justice.
I mean, it's just the fun. Like, there's a whole. We'll talk about it when we get to it. It's only a few episodes away, but
By that, you mean about a year and a half.
we've got to deal with some episodes of the Weakling trio. It's ironic that this arc kind of highlights that difference between Nami, Chopper, and Usopp and the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
Like when the rest of the crew goes on the island, you get to compare and contrast their reactions to the same things with what Nami, and Chopper, and Usopp are doing.
Well, I mean, they also have Luffy, who,
It's
he's just weird.
insane.
But I mean, it's all of them. It's like Frankie, Robin, Zoro, Sanji, and
I mean,
Luffy are the I don't give a shit crew.
yeah.
And even then, they're all freaking out at the ghost ship, and even only Robin's just like, okay.
Well, I mean, Robin would want one of them as a pet because, that's her, I don't want to say fetish, but it's her thing,
Within the crew, Robin is the straight man.
Well, I mean, more recently, not even then, she has sort of the personality of a straight man, but at the same time, she's into really weird shit, and she's unusually dark.
She's like the nightmare fetishist of the crew.
Yeah, I mean, in that sort of way is, like, she plays a straight man to sort of the wackier stuff, but everyone else sort of plays the straight man to her being unusually dark.
I mean, her straight man qualities are put on legendary display later in this arc. Like I say, when you're talking about One Piece, you can't stop yourself from talking about like
Because
150 episodes down the line.
Everything ties into everything else. You can't mention one plot point without mentioning the other 7 that it ties into in the next year and a half.
So, as a final note on One Piece, I will say this arc looks nothing like anything else in One Piece because of the setting. They
Yes.
go completely different. Like everyone's wearing, like Usopp's wearing his exorcist uniform the entire arc, and Seda was like, "Is he really wearing that the entire arc?" And it's like, "Yeah."
I assumed it was like for whatever reason I felt it was just like a gag for that one scene. Like,
No,
oh
he's
look, it's
have the
silly.
whole
He's got
book.
extras here while Brooks on the ship. Nope, he's stuck in it.
Oh no, that's his outfit for this arc. That's his
He's got like
hoverboard
the
costume.
cross. He's got like the cross, and he's got like the garlic
And
necklace.
very fitting considering who his sort of opponent this arc is.
He's got the Van Helsing hat.
Yeah.
And then Nami is wearing a shirt. Reading the manga, it's like, you kind of get to kind of like it when Nami's wearing a shirt because nowadays she usually isn't.
Well, I mean, it was like the first two arcs, of the more recent stuff. She had that, bikini top on, but then, you started seeing the more, her changing clothes a bit.
So yeah, this arc is gonna, like I mentioned, this arc is gonna actually have a big Chopper storyline in it, which is something we haven't seen since Drum Island.
Which is a long time ago now.
Usopp has really good character development this arc.
He does kind of, and then Sanji kind of gets destroyed. Starts to get destroyed in this arc.
He gets destroyed like the next two arcs. I mean, let's be real.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But in this arc they kind of like introduce a thing where it's like, that's not really been him.
But it is. But it is, though.
I mean, it kind of they basically turn him from Brock into Jiraiya from Naruto.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it sort of works because, like, he's always had this sort of veneer of, gentlemanly seriousness, but, he is sort of the pervert.
I mean, that veneer was like, I always loved that one scene in Alabasta where he kicks the crocodile to death, and then he's just dancing around in the water. It's like, Nami, did you see me? Was that cool?
Like, he's so thirsty. But it works.
Tortured by thirst. So that's One Piece,
Yes.
and so
Are we
now I'd like to.
are we gonna cover the reruns or no?
No,
Okay.
unless
I mean,
maybe if we get a rerun where it's like technically an old show but still new to the block-ish.
Airspace Sandy season 2 again already.
Please.
Oh, it.
I don't really believe them. He said it's not a comic I kill in the rerun slot, but I don't really believe him.
I hope it's not. I hope they find
Okay,
Space Dandy Season 2.
so in basically in 3 weeks, we're gonna have a new show, probably.
Two new show, maybe two.
Yeah, we don't know what they're gonna do.
We have no idea what they're
Like
gonna do.
we assume that 3 o'clock slot is a rerun slot, but who knows? They might.
I mean, I think that's a pretty safe assumption because
I think I do too, but who knows?
that just seems like the natural fit.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a slot where they air an old new show that's also cheap, like really cheap to get.
So
Still had Inuyasha. I think they'd, still, be airing the hour of that every night.
Well, because Inuyasha did like ridiculous ratings at 5:30 in the morning.
Seriously, I mean,
it was like polling like 700, 800
yeah.
total viewers, 800K.
I mean, it was
Like
never
consistently.
yeah, I mean, it was never like the best show in the world, but it was very watchable.
It's
Is why I'm surprised they never tried getting it back.
And then Inuyasha, the final act, wasn't.
very good.
They just kept the pacing up on it.
But basically, it's time for us to give us our official opinions or guesses on what show is replacing Parasite. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say it's going to be Log Horizon, because I feel it will be a Sentai show, and it's basically down to that or Ushio and Tora, and Log Horizon's ready to go. I don't know where Lucio and Tora's dub is at. I feel it's going to be that.
I hope it's Ushio and Tora, if only because the manga is sort of Full Metal Alchemist level put together. It's something that I haven't seen the whole adaptation, but if they do a good job of it, there's
Like, the final part is airing this season.
yeah, I mean,
Like, it's a 3-court show.
yeah, I mean, if they do a good job with it, there's no way people are going to have any complaints because the ending is,
Well, Sentai dub.
yeah, well, I mean, other than that, but I mean, in terms of story pacing and animation and stuff, like, as long as they keep the pacing in a good spot, there's no danger of us, hating it.
Right. And Log Horizon or Ushio and Tora, whichever one we get, we've got our first serious contender for best opening of the year.
Yes. Oh, I love Ushio and Tora's opening. It's
So,
just,
Seda, which one are you going to take? Or either any show are you going to guess?
I mean, while he thinks, I'm gonna say, just sort of in addition, that maybe they'll do Full Metal Panic. Not because, like I do think it's really good and it would be a good fit for the block, but also because they have the new season coming up and, like the content and like it's got just enough edge that, people would probably like it. But I mean, they got, like I said, they got the new season coming. It seems like the sort of thing that would fit fairly well in the block, but it's very story driven, so they're not going to be able to just take the new season and plug it in. So
Right. That's just kind of an old show, and they've already kind of, with
that
Samurai Champloo, it's been like a thing where it's like you've
right.
been kind of delaying some of these shows a little bit too long, right?
I mean, but with Full Metal Panic, they're going to need enough time to sort of get through all the content because I think the first, arc that covers the first three books is about 25 episodes or so, and then you got, the comedy arc covering all the short stories, and then you got another 13 episode season. So, if they want to show the new season, which, if I was DeMarco, I'd be thinking about it, they're going to have to start at some point, in the next year.
Right. I just don't know if they will care too much about showing the new season if they have to show the first season.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're on board with that so much.
Well, I mean, the animation and, the action and the voice acting and all that is, I mean, even for like modern dubs, it's really good considering when it was made.
Right. But do you think that's the actual replacement? What's your official guess?
I'm gonna go with Ushio and Tora.
Okay. So we basically think it's going to be one of those Sentai too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Sentai they seem like kind of like Funimation. They seem pretty eager to have their shows on TV.
they push
Um,
hard.
and I think especially now that they're down to one Parasite,
Hmm.
because
They're like that slot.
because Michiko and Hachin, or not Michiko and Hachin, Agame Kill was replaced by Dimension W. Um, I just don't I can't really see them deciding to go several months without a show on the block as they you
Especially
know
something like, say, Ushio and Tora is like sort of the perfect fit for, you know.
Like I can imagine them like bringing in Ushio and Tora, showing them like the first 15 seconds of that opening, and them being
Yeah,
like, "We'll take it."
exactly.
Like
Like,
sight unseen. That's a thing we want.
now.
yeah,
My guess would be Log Horizon, like Grexeno. I just the only reason why I'm guessing that is because that one kind of has a fully produced dub already.
right.
Yes, it's probably not very good.
I mean,
I guess
the clip we
it might.
see of Pimp Cat. I
Like, it's
mean,
not bad.
It might. If you told me it was better than Agami Got Killed, I'd probably believe you because Agami Got Killed is terrible. But based on what we've seen there and in many places, and although Parasite is better, it's still not nearly as good as its competitors.
Right.
But yeah, despite what we think of Sentai, I'm pretty sure they want to keep at least one show on the block most of the time. So yeah, I'm guessing it's Log Horizon. And I'm only guessing that over Ushio and Tora because Ushio and Tora does not have a dub yet, although that hasn't stopped shows in the past from
Right. Like,
premiering. So
Sword Art Online was, not completely dubbed when we started seeing it. Like,
and we've
no,
had dub
no,
premieres from Sentai too. I think.
we've had several dub premieres. Attack on Titan started airing before its DVDs were out,
I mean,
or streaming in a dub. Both the other Sentai shows, I'm pretty sure, both Agame Ga Kill and Parasite. Agame Ga Kill's, I think, its DVD didn't come out until just recently.
yeah,
Parasite's isn't out yet. Sword Art Online premiered on Toonami.
we were
I,
DVD.
I think the DVDs eventually caught up with the airing because they released faster than they aired. Um, so yeah, there's been a few, and then of course
So
like the more the more dramatic ones like Dimension W being a very very quick turnaround, or Space Dandy being simultaneous.
I mean, like Dimension W and Space Dandy are like the top two, where it's like there's like no lead time. I mean, we've all seen the Pimp Cat clip from Log Horizon.
Yep.
I mean, it's a you
It
know,
it just seems like I don't know anything about this show or the characters or whatever.
the
And it's
character
like,
in
why is his voice like this? It seems like very, I don't know.
it's definitely a complete miscast in Japanese. The character is kind of like a sophisticated older gentleman, and then they just go for this like pimp voice
For
in
some
the
reason, because I
dub.
thought it was
But
funny.
I was like,
actually, listening to the performance, I think it's actually kind of a good performance, just a complete miscast. Like he
Yeah.
seems to be really, really trying there.
Well,
We'll see, I think, because I think we will get it.
and do we think that the rerun slot is probably a Game got killed, despite what Jason says?
Despite what Jason says, I think it's a Kame ga Kill. And if
I
it's not, it's probably either Space Dandy or Cowboy Bebop HD.
it's going to be Parasite.
Or Parasite?
Because I think Parasite's been pulling good enough numbers that, they're going to want to keep it going if they can.
I mean, if they could air Parasite again, why couldn't they air Kame ga Kill again, which had the biggest rated premiere ever?
I still don't understand how that happened. Like, how did we get that one random
I mean,
night?
that was the week when Dragon Ball Resurrection F was out in theaters.
Oh.
So suddenly there was this big zeitgeist, and people were like, let's watch Dragon Ball on Toonami. And they went,
It was just some random episode, too. It wasn't
yeah,
like,
but it got over 2 million viewers.
for some reason.
And so Akame ga Kill got the biggest lead-in of all time.
Yeah, but so far the rerun shows have been Attack on Titan, Dead Man Wonderland came back.
That was
Dead Man Wonderland was first.
Oh, yes, but that's just kind of weird how they just kind of decided, yep, it's back for...
They just, like, what are we going to put in here? Dead Man Wonderland? Sure.
It'll fill up time for a couple of months. And then this, whatever it is. Well,
Kill la
Kill, and then whatever this is going to be.
Well, I mean, I think Kill la Kill, the reason they're not going to do it, if only because while it had the biggest opening ever, I think it sort of fell off ratings-wise near the end, didn't it?
I didn't really see that. I mean, it never quite reached those heights of a bunch of random people who don't usually watch or watching this one night, but it was pretty consistent.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think that Parasite, has been, getting higher numbers at least.
I mean, in its time slot?
Yeah.
Parasite's been a pretty solid performer at 1 a.m.
I guess. I don't know. It could be Parasite, but I still think it's going to be a Kame ga Kill.
Maybe.
I probably wouldn't watch any of those. I don't watch Kill la Kill rerun, but I would watch Space Dandy or Cowboy Bebop. So
I would.
those are the type of shows that are kind of like always in the running because, well,
they can air them at any time they want.
Space
basically.
Dandy they can. Cowboy Bebop is a little bit weirder now that Funimation has the rights to the HD version.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a little like I don't know how much control Adult Swim has over that version technically, but I would have to assume even if it's up to Funimation, they have to have some leeway towards Adult Swim. Like, hey, if you want to air it, we can give it to you, pretty darn cheap for 3 a.m. or whatever.
So some other candidates for like new show and rerun. New show, I think the worst case scenario is probably Al Noah Zero.
Oh God, no.
I mean,
Aniplex.
Max Trevor will defend Akame ga Kill, but he won't defend that, and that's a nope sandwich right there.
No one can defend that show. I saw like 5 minutes.
This is not an attack at Bass, by the way.
Now-
it's just kind of funny that
I saw-
a show that is universally hated in this community. The one guy who will really go up to bat for that show is gonna say, I don't want anything to do with this other show, man.
Now I don't know anything about anime, but Ordinary Zero is like a mecha show.
Yeah, it's a mecha show.
With lots of drama and melodrama and probably fan service.
Yeah, and it has the composer of Kill la Kill, so you get that to look forward to.
So you get really awkward, unfitting vocal tracks.
Yeah, and Attack on Titan, don't forget that.
Yeah, I know.
And Xenoblade Chronicles. So basically everything but Kill la Kill that he scores is like, this doesn't fit.
Well, no, Xenoblade Chronicles X. There are a bunch of good tracks in there, but there are, a handful that don't work.
So my dream rerun slot thing is probably Teen Titans because I've been watching a lot of Teen Titans lately, but that's not going to happen.
No,
Yeah.
they might have
But
written that off for taxes.
may, no, they
I
didn't.
don't think
Teen
they did.
Titans? No, no, they didn't do that.
I know they did it for a bunch of other shows, and I'm like,
Yeah, shows that failed. Teen Titans was not a failure.
no, I don't think those shows failed either. I think it's just that,
It's
it,
it's just kind of a business decision. If they decide like this was a success, but we don't want to do anything else with it ever, they can save some money by writing it off.
Well, I don't think they could write Teen Titans off because they didn't really produce it.
Yeah, and also there's Teen Titans Go, which I know is a different property, but
I mean, Teen Titans Go was the same character, same voice actors and everything,
yeah,
they brought everyone back for it.
which is kind of cool.
which is kind of lame because
Lame that they
stuck with
brought
that.
It's cool,
Because we want the old one back, and now we'll never
Yeah.
get it.
them.
but this is close enough.
But
I've only seen like a few episodes, but it seems like okay, as a comedy animation show, this seems actually decently well produced.
It is.
So compared to
a
like
thing they could do is they could air Samurai Jack again.
that, yeah, I expect that we might see maybe not Samurai Jack, but I'm pretty sure sometime this year or in 2017 we'll see Fooly Cooly. They'll decide to take 6 weeks and throw it in the rerun slot.
Yeah, they can fit that in.
That's a pretty easy decision to make.
I think they'd wait to do that before, they're about to get the episodes, though.
Yeah, that'll
Right.
probably be 2017.
And I was thinking that if they Samurai Jack's probably a late year thing. They
Yeah.
could, if they wanted to, they could put it on the rerun slot and air the whole show, and then be like, "Hey, the old episode just ended. Here's the final season."
So apparently, Toonami is not doing MomoCon this year,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
because
apparently,
for obvious reasons.
I wonder.
Jason said on his Ask page that they plan on doing other cons though. So who knows what their plans are?
Yeah.
I believe they said the first details on Jack are going to come in June.
I know someone linked that in the thread, and it was some or they linked like some French con where they said like
Oh, yeah.
it was like that they're gonna get.
Man, what is it with the
Yeah.
French and getting weird?
If I remember
details?
right, France is a pretty big anime market.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're like the second biggest One
Yeah.
Piece area.
Mhm.
I remember reading, like, City Hunter, like, which is a fantastic property that, never really caught on in America for reasons I don't entirely understand, because it seems like the sort of thing that should have, but like apparently it's huge there. All the volumes are translated, the series is dubbed, Over here, not so much, but yeah, apparently France and Italy are, fairly big consumers of anime.
And then Germany makes some weirdo alternate anime openings, man.
Well, I mean, that's more due to their, the hell is it? Their sort of standards and practices thing being a little tighter than everyone else.
Right.
They can't have, like, anything that's, like, even, partly, like, referencing the Nazis. Like, I think they had to change.
So basically, they couldn't air Impel Down at all.
No, probably not. And they had to change the hilt on Ichigo's sword because, it looks fairly swastika-ish.
Also, Ace's first back tattoo is probably a no-go,
Yeah, that's also no.
even though it's not, Anyway,
Right.
we went from what show's going to replace Parasite to, hey, German anime is weird.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sort of thing happens, though.
Podcasts, man.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? We'll figure this out a little bit better in
I
the
mean,
coming weeks.
We'll get comfortable, as we do the more of this.
I was intending to do like the thing. I was intending to be like give a little, recap of the episodes, but we just kind of didn't care. So,
Wait, recap of the episodes?
like in this episode, blah 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 happened. What do you think?
Well, we kind of did that.
Sort of did that.
But I mean, it was like I would be like, this was episode, etc., and then I would say,
That happened.
basically, I would do what the Toonami Show Rundown guys do, but that didn't happen. So,
I don't listen to their podcast. I don't know what they do.
No, I'm okay with being different.
We'll
Anyways,
be different.
if
We'll
anyone is
be
if anyone is still listening to this podcast right now, just feel free to say what you think. If you think we suck, let us know. We'll try to be better.
line. That's you.
Not to be too mean, otherwise you get banned.
Say it will ban you.
Actually, I probably won't.
So, oh man. So going forward, we will have more episodes. We want to do this, and we would like you to be on there too. So if you would like to be on this podcast, send me, Greg Zeno, a PM. You can say you want to be on the podcast on thread, and I will try to catch it. But if you don't send me a PM, I can't guarantee that I'll see it, and I can't guarantee that you'll be put in the queue in a correct order, because it's going to be like a thing where it's like, okay, first come first served. The first people to say I want to be on the podcast, I'll be like, do you want to be on next week? And if they can't do it, we'll just keep going until they do get on, and we'll just keep going down the list like that.
And I assume there's some flexibility here.
Definitely.
First of all, I guess just to try to be consistent, we'll try to stick to Tuesday nights, but
Tuesdays at 8.
Yeah, and
because it looks like in reality it's not going to be a 1 hour thing. It's going to be a 2 hour thing.
Yeah.
It's closer to an hour and a half because we started half.
We started around 8:30 and it's 10 now as of recording. So yeah, it's been about an hour and a half.
So yeah, I mean, Comics for Rundown is just starting recording, I think.
But I assume that we'll keep things flexible, and the whoever is participating in the podcast might change every week. Like I may not be available every single week.
Right. We'll try to have at least 2 people on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because it can't just be me talking to myself.
Well, you can do a monologue. You can write a monologue about whatever.
But yes, we'll try to have. There'll be a kind of a list, and we'll just go down it over and over again. And if people want to add themselves to the list and we'll put them in. It's like so. You'll be able to participate if you wish. This is not going to be a.
We want to hear a variety of opinions.
Yeah, we want to hear all sorts of opinions, even if they're bad.
Even Base Forevers.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry, Base. But
I'm like,
don't hate me.
Please don't leave again. We're sorry.
Please don't be mad at us.
It's okay to like bad things.
I like bad things. Not really.
We forgive you.
My opinions are immaculate. You will never, understand me.
Yeah, that's enough crapping on Banks forever. So this has been episode 1.
That's a good place to stop.
Yeah, this has been episode 1 of the ToonamiGAF podcast. We'll see you next week with hopefully these 3 people and 2 other different people. Hopefully.
Oh,
see you next week.